Welcome to John Gets Games. This is my variety vlog covering July of 2016, and as you can see over there, I have a lot of things that I'll be covering in this vlog, so feel free to jump ahead to the section that most interests you or stick around for the whole thing. As far as general updates are concerned, July was a huge month for the channel. 6 new pledges were added onto the Patreon, among them Ian Noble and Larry Schneider, who are both new producers, which is great because I get to add their name to the end of every video that I do, which I really like doing. We also had Tassin Shama and Stuart Platt. I apologize if I butchered any of your names. So that's just really exciting, especially when you consider there are only 30 pledges total, so 6 is a pretty big deal, all for 1 month. So very exciting. I hope to keep that trend going for sure. The second thing is that I now have a dedicated filming studio, which is amazing. Up until about 2 weeks ago, I always had to set everything up, set the lights up, get the camera out, put a cloth over the kitchen table, clean off the kitchen table. It was just a big thing to set everything up to film and then take it all back down again and put it up and down again. It was just an added labor to making videos, and honestly, sometimes I didn't make a video when I could have because I just could not be bothered to put everything up. But we've changed all that. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment with my wife, and our second bedroom was pretty much just a place to keep our books and where a guest could sleep, but now we've changed all that. We've kind of gutted the room, moved our old kitchen table down there, bought a new beautiful wooden kitchen table, which is always a plus, and now it's just a full-time place where I can film, which is amazing. It just means the camera's set up already, the lights are set up, I can just go down there in about 2 or 3 minutes, be ready to film pretty much anything. So I'm really hoping this is gonna increase my output, but also just give me kind of a safe, comforting, productive space to really just work on this stuff. Now, right now I'm in front of my wall of games. I lugged everything upstairs to do this vlog, and I'll probably continue to do that once a month because, I don't know, it's kind of fun to be in front of the wall of games for 1 video a month. But anyway, very exciting. And related to that, I filmed 9 videos worth of content last week, actually in 3 days. And this definitely has to do with having the studio. 6 of these were reviews, and 3 of them were full playthroughs. And I mean, I was like 7 hours a day for 3 days straight. I just had 3 days off from work, and I am now really far ahead because I'm going to continue putting out 2 videos a week as much as I can. But August and September are crazy months for me usually at my regular job, so that's usually when you start to see a big lull in my videos. But I'm hoping that this really gets me ahead, and I'm going to continue to film where I can to kind of keep boosting, and hopefully just always have a backlog of videos to fall back on if I ever get crushed with work and can't film for a few weeks like happened back in May. So anyway, whew, a lot of stuff happened in July. It's a very exciting time for the channel. I'm really excited. All right, let's move into the Q&A segment. This month I was sent 2 different questions, so let's start with the first one. This comes from Zone Gamma, who's actually asked me questions before. Hello again, Zone Gamma. They asked, you don't have any Agricola games, Le Havre or the others. Is it because you don't like them or just because your friends already have them? This is a pretty good question. It's true, I've never actually owned any of those games. In fact, I think the only Uwe Rosenberg game I have is Patchwork, which, yeah, it's right back behind me. I've played Agricola once, and this was back about within the first year of it coming out, so like 2010-ish, a really long time ago. I was pretty new to board gaming. I played it with somebody who was very dry and very rules lawyery and not very excitable, and it was not a fun game. I really disliked it, actually. In fact, I genuinely don't think he told me about losing points for not having your animals in corrals at the end of the game until the end of the game. I think I ended up with 0 points or negative points. I don't even remember if you can be at negative points. It was just a really souring experience, and I've never had a chance to play it again. And I would play it again if I was given the opportunity, and I've also never played Caverna, although a good friend of mine, couple of mine, they own Caverna and Le Havre, so sort of both aspects of your question are true. I have played Le Havre with those friends once, and I enjoyed it, but man, there is so many bits in that game. There's so many different resources and things to look at, and in all the buildings, you can see what's going to come up in what order. There is a lot going on in that game that you really need to kind of dig down on. You play the game multiple times and get into it. I only played it, I think, once, maybe twice, and I thought it was okay. I would play it again, but it's certainly nowhere near the top of my list of games that I'm actively interested in playing. I am quite interested in trying Caverna, mostly to give it a shot, to have played it once and to, well, maybe see the difference between Agricola a little bit, but again, that first play almost doesn't even count of Agricola. So I hope that kind of answers your question. I'm definitely interested in playing more of these Uwe Rosenberg games. In fact, Feast for Odin, which is coming out this year, I'm very excited to look into that. I don't know if you would call that an Agricola-style game, but yeah, there it is. I'm looking forward to trying that one for sure. Question number 2 comes from Michael Cross, and he asked, do you feel it's getting tougher to keep up with the current influx of games? With so many new games coming out so fast, do you feel that maybe some games may not get the chance or attention they deserve? I think that, well, it's definitely getting tougher to keep up. I mean, there's so many new games coming out, and I think definitely some great games are probably getting a little bit lost in the shuffle. they just for some reason missed the hype. For instance, Steam Time. I didn't hear about that one until it was pretty much almost sold out, at least from what I heard at distributors. And I love the game. It's amazing, and I saw pretty much zero hype for it. It's a really solid Euro game that has good reviews from everywhere I've looked, but just nobody was really talking about it on social media or anything like that. So I think, yes, good games are going to get somewhat buried, and unfortunately, great games by lesser-known designers are also going to have a lot harder time breaking in to this influx of games because there's a little bit of cult of personality and cult of designer, people who know that a designer makes games they like. They're going to be more likely to gravitate towards that and less likely to maybe take a risk on a designer they don't know. So I don't know if this is necessarily a bad thing because the more games that come out, I think the better for the industry because it seems like it's getting more coverage, it's getting more attention. It seems like more and more people that I meet in just everyday life have heard of board games, modern board gaming anyway, have oh yeah, I've tried Settlers of Catan, oh yeah, I've played Ticket to Ride or Carcassonne even. And that's just really exciting to see. And I think even though those are really popular games that everybody knows about, I think just this billowing of interest is largely, a large part of that is coming from just the number of games that are coming out. It's kind of pushing these games in all different directions. I think it's definitely a good thing. I mean, many of these games are probably also not great. There's obviously diamonds in the rough all the time, but many games are also pretty mediocre, and to a certain extent, you're going to see a lot more of those as the overall count of games just balloons in general. But either way, I don't think this is a bad thing for the industry. I think it's just a sign that things are getting better, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where things go in the future. Although, from my perspective, I'm going to have to try and get even more choosy with what I cover and what I play, because I'm obviously a bit of cult of the new anyway, even before I started making videos. So it does mean that, well, you're going to see later on in this video, I got a lot of games this month, and, in a few years, if the number of board games that are produced are increased by 20, 30, 50, 100%, who knows? Maybe I'll be getting even more games, or most likely I'll just have to be a lot more choosy, and I think that's kind of what everyone's going to have to do, and hopefully we can find those diamonds in the rough, but unfortunately that's just going to happen. Let's now move on to the Excited About segment, and this is where I talk about one new game that's coming out that I'm really interested in trying because it's got some pretty interesting stuff going on, and for this month, that is going to be Oceanos. Now, my first impression of this game was pretty lackluster. It looked like, oh, okay, it's a drafting game. It's by Antoine Bauza. He's the guy who designed Seven Wonders. I like Seven Wonders, but do I really need another drafting game from the guy who made Seven Wonders? And I looked at some of the art and looked okay, kind of cutesy, like you are doing some underwater exploring. And I liked the cards to a certain degree, but it also seemed like these cartoony figurines were just kind of plastered over it. I was not terribly impressed. But then I watched a playthrough of this game, and now I'm actually significantly interested in the game. I had to kind of break over a little bit of meh to it, and now I really like the look of some of these mechanics. The first thing has to do with drafting in general. This game is not just a Seven Wonders ripoff. It is not really a hand drafting style game where you pick a card and pass it to the person on your left. In this game, the way it works is you draw a certain number of cards. At the beginning of the game, it's just 2, and you can pick one of them to put in front of you. We all do this simultaneously, and the other one you give to the current start player who does not actually have a hand. And they are given a bunch of cards, potentially from other opponents. If it's a 5-player game, they're going to be given 4 cards, and then they can choose from that, and then the start player moves to the next person. So instead of having this memory aspect to be like, what did I leave, and may it come back to me, I'm not sure. This one, it seems like everybody's always just trading with one person. It's them and whoever the current start player is, which is a very cool idea. On top of that, you have a little bit of engine building with this game. You have this little submarine with these cool little puzzle pieces where as you're playing the game, you can upgrade it so that you can see more different types of fish. One of the things you're looking at in this tableau is just a variety of underwater sea life that are kind of goofily illustrated. And at the beginning of the game, you can only score points for seeing 3 of them, but there's like at least 5 or 6, actually no, I think at least 8 types of them in the game. So you can upgrade that. You can upgrade your periscopes. You can draw more cards at the beginning of your turn. That's just, all this stuff seems pretty neat. There's a push your luck aspect with divers trying to pick up treasure chests. Do you just cash out kind of now, or do you wait later and really try to get a bunch more bang for your buck there? So it's a very neat take on drafting that apparently only plays to 5 players, which I'm a little surprised about because it feels like this could play a lot more players. But then again, I guess if it was like a 7-player experience, that star player is getting 6 cards at the beginning of the game and way more than that later on. So yeah, anyway, I'm pretty excited to try this game. I don't know if I'm going to rush out and buy it, but I'm definitely, this is definitely a game I do really want to try. If I haven't played it by BGGCon, it's going to be near the top of my list, I think, to play over there. We'll see if that actually ends up being the case in a couple months, but yeah, that pretty much wraps it up. Oceanos looks mechanically like a very cool take on hand drafting, and I'm interested in trying it. So now let's jump into the Games of Note section. And as you can see, I'm going to be covering 9 different games, so feel free to skip ahead to the one you're most interested in. I won't blame you, I promise. As always, these are games that I played in this last month either for the first time or it was a particular of note game of it. I played more games than this, new to me this last month, but I pared it down to 9 just to, I don't know, keep things a bit reasonable. The first game I'm going to cover is Star Wars Rebellion. This is a 2-player asymmetric game where one player plays Rebel Alliance. They pick one base at one star system out of about 30 at the beginning of the game, and their base is hidden on that location. And then the other player plays the Imperials, and they spend the whole game trying to find that base, a bit of cat and mouse and deduction going on to find it. And then once they find it, they need to destroy that base. I played as the Imperials, and I won on, I think, the 9th turn, and if I didn't win on that turn, the Rebel player would have won right after that, because the way the Rebel player wins is they just make it to the end of the game without having their base destroyed. And as the Rebel player is playing, they're trying to do these objectives which say, you know, if this, then that kind of stuff. If you destroy a Death Star with Luke Skywalker, then this kind of thing happens, and you will reduce the overall number of turns that the game is going to be played. So that's why it got down to, I think it was about 9. And this is an interesting game. It was long, though. I think it went about 4.5 hours, and it went fast, I will admit. I was enjoying it pretty much the whole way through. And I was doing lots of engine building stuff as the Empire. I was just putting out components, putting out ships all over the place. A couple times I became component limited. I had so many things out on the board, but I was not finding this base. I think I found it on the 7th, or I think maybe the 8th turn. I think it actually was the 8th turn of the game. It was really near the end of the game that I finally found this base, even though I had ships all over the place, because movement is actually really slow. You can build stuff all over the place, but it's surprisingly difficult to move these ships around the galaxy. I guess thematically that makes a lot of sense. And then even once I found the base, it was really slow to get my massive army over there enough to actually stomp it out. And it was also interesting because in this game as the Imperials, when you have ground-based combat, you have the AT-ATs and AT-STs, these massive mechanical engines of war, which in the game are, you know, little pieces that are almost similar size to little troopers that the Rebel player has, as well as some little flying little buggies. But when you actually start playing, you realize that, man, the Imperial stuff is so much better. Like one AT-AT took out like 6 or 7 things that the Rebel player had because they could only score a hit on 1 out of 6 chance on these die rolls. It is a dice resolution combat, but I'll tell you what, it felt really thematic. It was a good time. I would totally play this game again. I think I'll probably play it better going into the next time I play it. I'm interested to try it as the Rebels, but this is definitely, well, first of all, this is not a game that I own. This is not a game I don't think I will ever own because it's 2-player only and that's a really long playtime, but I'm really happy there is a copy in my friend group to try it again at some point, probably on a special occasion. The second game of note is Via Nebula. This is one of the newest games coming out from Space Cowboys, the publisher who makes gorgeous looking games like Splendor and Black Fleet and Elysium, and is designed by Martin Wallace, who is a super famous, very prolific board game designer, been making games for a very long time. And this is a very lightweight, it's a lighter end of the medium spectrum Euro game, in my opinion. Where you are just doing some route building. You are trying to get these buildings built on this large board with a bunch of hexagons on it. And the way it works is there are resources on spots, and there are spots where you can build buildings, and you got to get the resources over to the spot with the building on it. The problem is that the pathways are clouded with fog. So what you need to do is spend actions clearing that fog out. But the catch here is that once you clear fog out, it stays out, and other players can then use that spot as well. So you're kind of creating all these different paths to grab these resources and move them around, but you and your opponents are doing the same thing. In fact, the spots where you build the buildings can take 2 different players building. So 2 people are vested in getting stuff to the same exact hex, which means you almost have some cooperative nature going on occasionally as you're playing the game, which is pretty neat. It does mean that pretty much anything you do in this game is going to help your opponents, which is a very interesting idea. I really like that because you need to try and be as self-serving as you can. This is a competitive game. You want to make sure you help your opponents out as little as possible or as few of your opponents out as possible. And that's just a really great idea. It's also incredibly easy to teach. Like this is like a 5 or 6 minute teach. Realistically, like there's so few things going on, maybe a little bit longer if you really go into some nitty gritty, but you can just sit down. The player board kind of teaches you how to play the game right away. Take 2 actions. Here's the 6 action options. They're really obvious. Just go for it. And turns are pretty quick as well. Many times when I was playing it, I played it twice now, once against opponents and once against myself. I've actually filmed a full playthrough, which should have been posted by now, actually, now that I think about it. So check my channel out. You can see a full playthrough of this game and really have an idea of how it plays. I was really impressed with how this game played with my friends. It taught really fast. Oh, that's right. That's what I was saying. The turns come back really quick to you. In the game with my opponents, there were times where I'd finish a turn and then go fill up my glass of water and come sit back down, and it was pretty much my turn again. So it was like, oh crap, what am I going to do? I'm not sure. And honestly, not that much happens between turns, so it does have a largely tactical feel to it, but there's definitely some strategy going on with where you try and put your buildings and what spots you are going to be exploiting to get resources, because that's another thing you do. You send your little craftsmen out to make a spot, make resources so that they appear on the board, and you get points for doing that. But then once you do that, anybody can grab those resources. So anyway, fascinating, cool little game that teaches really quickly. I'm looking forward to playing this one definitely a few more times. I'm pretty excited about it, to be honest. Next up, we have Merchants of Araby, which was actually a prototype version of the game. It's completely designed, I believe, but it's going to be going out on Kickstarter pretty soon by Daily Magic Games. These are the people who brought us Valeria Card Kingdoms, Villages of Valeria, Quests of Valeria, lots of Valeria, but I guess this is kind of a new chain for them with this Araby thing. And what's going on in this game is it's a tableau building negotiation game. And the tableau building side is, it's neat enough. You're kind of like putting people out that make resources, then you spend those resources to maybe put some more people out and do some pretty cool combinations for the stuff. But the game really shines when it comes to the negotiation aspect. That's really the catch for the game. And that's because the rulebook tells you that pretty much anything is on the table when it comes to negotiating. You can swap cards from your hand. You can give victory points. You can promise things in the future. You could use your cards in your tableau to make resources to help your opponents. And you're only going to do that if, by doing so, they're going to do something to come back and scratch your back. Because what you're trying to do is fill up these caravans, and you have one turn to do it. You have your turn, and then by the time it comes back around to you, the caravan goes away. So when it's not your turn, your caravan might not be full enough to really get the money out of it that you want to. So you're going to be wheeling and dealing and negotiating with your opponents when it's not your turn to try and fill your caravan up more, maybe by putting some more things down for yourself and allowing your opponent to go in there as well. So when it evaluates on your turn, not only will you get money, but they will also get money. And so it's a very fascinating experience. Definitely the kind of thing where you could go really deep with a negotiation. You could promise like multiple layers, like if I do this for you and give you this, then you give that to that opponent, and they'll give you this, and then that will make them happy enough to give me this thing. You could go pretty much as deep as you want, or you could just say, hey, I'll give you 2 points if you give me a jewel. And I think it's kind of cool that that's going to be kind of play group dependent. It seems like it's very versatile in that respect. But yeah, I was pretty impressed with it. It's a neat little game. I don't usually play negotiation style games, and I'm also not usually attracted to them, but I enjoyed the play of this. It's a neat package. So now let's move on to Scythe. You have probably heard of this game because I don't think I've seen hype for a game as big as this ever. This is, well, first of all, I did a full playthrough for the game this last month in July, and it is now my most watched video ever. Even though I've been doing this for like 2.5 years now, that has skyrocketed all the way up. It's at like 7,500 views, which is a lot for me. And man, there's just so much hype for this game, and I've played it now once in person. It was a 3-player game, and it was a pretty good time. I played the game a couple times now, obviously for the playthrough, and I even played it once online many months ago with some other YouTube friends of mine that was streamed, and you can see it on No Pun Included's YouTube channel. But so let's talk about the game itself. Well, this gameplay itself, actually. I came dead last. I did very bad in this game. And I think I figured out one of the reasons for that. Because what you're doing in this game is you're trying to get these 6 objective tokens out. And once all 6 are out for one player, the game ends immediately. And you're trying to do a variety of things to get these objectives, like get all your mechs out, or try to get all of your workers out on the board, or win a couple rounds of combat. And what I was trying to do was make upgrading work really well. And the way upgrades work in this game, you pick from one of 4 actions on a turn, and there's a top action and a bottom action. And when you do this upgrade action, you can take a little cube off the top and put it down on the bottom somewhere else. And when you take that thing off the top, it makes the top action more powerful. And when you put it down on the bottom, it decreases the cost on something else. And I tried to go really hard on this, and I realized that, man, the upgrade strategy, like solely around that, did not seem good enough. And I did not do much with this enlisting ability, which is something else you can do, where when you do this enlisting ability, you will then get stuff when your opponents do stuff. And this, I think, is a much more important thing than upgrading, because getting resources for free, getting reputation and money for free when your opponents do things, that's a really good way, I think, to keep your engine going, because you're not doing anything. It's like little gifts that you are investing in. Also, a really neat thing, part to this game. I know I've kind of glossed over how this game plays. I guess I should mention that super briefly. It's a big board with a bunch of hexes on it. You move these mechs around, kind of posturing your power and moving these little workers around, which will produce various resources, which will let you make more mechs and build buildings, which unlock abilities for you. That kind of thing. It feels like a 4X Civ style game, but you don't actually do that much out on the map. It's more like you have things on the map, you put some more things on the map, and they move around a whole bunch, and then the game ends. So one really cool mechanic in this game is the popularity track, which modifies how many points you get at the end of the game for everything, pretty much. For your area control, like how many hexes you control when the game is over, to how many of these objectives you put out, to just how many points you get for the excess resources you had. And every time I played this game, I think I've come in at the lowest popularity, and I'm really looking forward to playing this again. In fact, I should be playing this again later on this week, and I'm really going to try to go up on popularity, try and be really popular and see how the game plays out. With that respect, there's just a lot going on with this game that I'm looking forward to exploring more. I'm hoping to review it sometime soon, but I definitely feel like I need to get a couple more games under my belt to really have a good mental grasp on everything that's going on here to make a solid opinion on what I think about all these different aspects of the game. Next up, we have Mystic Vale, which is kind of a new style of game. It's a card crafting system game that is reminiscent to deck building games, because the way this game works is you have these translucent cards that are split into thirds, essentially, and each card has something on a third of it, and you're going to slide these into sleeves so that you never overlap these sections, and your cards will get better as time goes on. They might start out completely blank or have one little thing on it, and as you add these things in, once you play this card, it'll do a variety of different things. And it plays a lot like a deck builder because you're getting resources and buying these things and sliding them in, although you start the game with 20 cards and you end the game with 20 cards. This game also has a bit of push your luck to it, where you reveal cards from the top of your deck until you see a certain number of decay symbols, and then you could keep drawing, but if you see any more of those decay symbols, you're going to bust and lose your entire turn. So it kind of mitigates that deck building thing where sometimes you just have a really terrible hand. Well, this game lets you push your luck a little bit. So I played this game a couple times now, and the first thing is, the push your luck aspect to it was not very prevalent, to be honest. Like, it usually seemed pretty obvious when you should push your luck and when you shouldn't. And it was pretty detrimental if you did push your luck when you really shouldn't have, because you lose your whole turn. So usually people just didn't push their luck unless their hand was absolutely terrible, they were near the end of their deck, and they just wanted to recycle and get those good new cards back into the system. It almost seemed like people were intentionally busting to dig through their cards to reset their deck. So that was a little bit of a bummer. It also seemed like it had a bit of a runaway leader issue, because you are putting this engine together and you are like covering up some of the decay symbols so you can go deeper into your deck. You're getting all these different symbols which form patterns that you can grab these other cards that are worth victory points. You're just getting cards that just generate you victory points, and the game ends once a certain number of victory points are gone. And once one person's engine is really going, it could just run away, and everybody else's engine, who's not so great, there's no mechanics to really catch back up again at all. Now, I've only played the game a couple times, so this is not a definitive opinion of it yet, and I've enjoyed both plays of it. They've both been pretty frustrating, to be honest. In fact, the second game I played, I had 8 points at the end of the game. I know, if you play this game at all, you're going to be like, what? And maybe John just does not get this game. Maybe I'm just really bad at Mystic Vale. So yeah, I need to try this one more. I played both games I played were 4-player games, which I felt maybe dragged on a little bit with waiting for your opponents to take their turns until he gets back to you. I'm looking forward to trying this 2-player and really seeing it play fast and really trying to build some engines and see what I can do with it. Also to try and maybe catch up to an opponent who seems to be doing really well, see what I can do there. So it's a very interesting package. It's trying to do something new. Apparently it's going to be, this card crafting system is going to be in a much bigger game that's going to be coming out maybe in 2017. So I'm interested to see how this new genre of gaming develops over time, but I feel like Mystic Vale itself might be a little bit of a miss. All right, now let's talk about Nations. This is not a new game by any stretch. It's been out for a few years. In fact, I've owned it since it first came out. I was super excited to play this game when I first heard about it, because at that point I was already a huge fan of Through the Ages. And so both of these games are card pool drafting, engine building, civilization style games that don't have maps. In fact, you could go to a certain level and be like, wow, these games are really similar, but they do actually play quite differently. What's going on in Nations is you are trying to manage a certain number of buildings that you have in front of you that you can upgrade as the game goes on by spending gold, and of course these buildings can make you gold. They can also make you military strength, and they can make you stability, which is a very interesting resource, because if you are pretty weak and somebody else is very militaristically strong, and they cause some wars to happen that really hurt you, the more stable you are, the less those wars will actually hurt, which is a very neat idea. You can be kind of a peaceful country where these wars just kind of bounce off you. You still lose a victory point, and victory points are somewhat small when it comes to this game. Also, one really cool thing about this game, especially when you compare it to other games like Through the Ages, when it comes to military, is it's very global when it comes to trying to assert dominance on your opponents. It's not like, I'm really strong, you're really weak, I'm going to smack you down. It's, I'm really strong, you're really weak, I'm going to initiate a war at this certain military threshold, and everybody underneath it is going to get affected by that. So it's less like targeted in your face, it's much more indirect than a game like Through the Ages is, where you just aggress somebody and steal their stuff. This is much more like you initiate something that's going to hurt other players much more than yourself. In fact, if you're the military player, it's probably not going to hurt you much, but you have to draft that war. Actually, that's kind of interesting. So this is a pool drafting game where there's a certain number of cards out there on the board, and you need to grab them in a certain order. So if you're spending an entire action pulling that war card into your hand, you are letting your opponent maybe get something else that they really want before you. So very interesting stuff going there. And if you don't take the war, you take that really other cool thing, your opponent who's super weak has a military strength of 0, they could take the war. And now it's going to affect everybody with less than 0 military, which is nobody. And that's a really cool way that pacifist players can also get around this kind of stuff. So anyway, I played a 2-player game of this. That was a lot of preamble. I played a 2-player game of this with my wife, Jessica, a few weeks ago. I haven't played this in years, and this is actually the first time I played it with all the advanced cards. Every other time I played it, which was like 3 or 4 times, I played it with the basic set because I was a little worried about overcomplicating with new players, and I kind of felt it kind of got bland. And I think the reason for that is because I wasn't playing with the interesting, cool cards. So I played with Jess, and she kicked my butt. Oh my gosh. She went pretty militaristic, and I thought I was doing a good job of being a pacifist and making up for it. But once the game was over and we counted up our points, it was not even close. But I still really enjoyed the game, and I actively liked all those special new cards that I'd never seen before. It definitely added a bunch of new life into this game. I think I was doing it a disservice before of playing it without every card just in the game. It really does not add that much complexity. I think I will never not do that again, and I think anybody who's thinking about playing Nations, don't be scared off by the rulebook saying, for your first game, don't use these expert cards. Just throw everything in there. That's, I think, how the game is meant to be played. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. I think it has renewed its spot on my shelf. I'll be keeping it for sure. Yeah, good times. Next up, we have Myrmes, which I talked a bit about last month in the vlog because I traded for it. I got rid of Acrotiri and I got this game. And what's going on in this game is each player controls an ant colony. And there is a bit of action selection going on here where everybody has a little hive board in front of them, and they have a certain number of nurse ants. And you could put them on different spots to like make more warrior ants or make more worker ants, make more larvae, all that kind of stuff. Or you could also place them in such a way to make more nurse ants, which is oftentimes a good thing because that's essentially the number of actions you have on a turn. And the really cool aspect of this game is not necessarily that hive where you're doing your own little stuff. It's this main board out in the middle where you kind of send your ants out onto the grassy field, I guess, that you are playing in, and you lay pheromone trails down to get access to various resources in order to build up your hive, like dig out new levels, unlock new abilities, place bigger pheromone trails, all that kind of stuff. It's a very cool thematic link to a kind of abstract-ish looking game. I love that they went there, like as far as the theme is concerned, a game about taking over territory with ant pheromone trails and then like stomping out your opponent's pheromone trails. It's so neat. Also, the way this works is you put these little pheromone trail tiles out on the board. They're in a variety of shapes, and every spot that you covered up will make one of that resource, and you'll put it on top of the trail, and after every turn, you take one of those things off and put it back into your hive. And the really cool thing about this is it really feels like you made this trail, and now just other ants are just going out there. Like you kind of set a system in place, and now you unearthed 4 different resources. Well, for the next 4 turns, we're going to be getting 1 resource. And you choose which one you grab, but you kind of mentally almost see the other ants. Like the worker ant that you make that goes out and explores, it's like an explorer ant, and then it goes away, it just disappears. And then for the next few turns, you just have this system, this like conveyor belt of ants just following this trail, grabbing the stuff, bringing it back to your hive. It's just very cool. I played it only once. It was a 3-player game, and we had a pretty good time. It was getting a bit contentious near the end. I won pretty solidly, I think. I'm looking forward to trying this game again. It did not blow my socks off mechanically, but I will say that just thematically, like the entire package together makes it a very cool experience. I am looking forward to playing it again because it just felt so novel. The second to last game I'm going to cover also happens to be a second edition. This is St. Petersburg. I picked this up over the last month, and there was a first edition that came out a whole bunch of years ago. I'm not actually sure when, but I know that the second edition came out in 2014, and I've heard rumblings of this game for years, largely since 2014 when this new edition came out. I heard that it's this great engine building game with pool drafting, and I love engine building, and I love card pool drafting, like a bunch of cards in the middle and you draw them into your hand, or in this case, just into a tableau to do stuff. But it never grabbed me enough really to go out of my way and buy it. And then Heavy Cardboard, it's a podcast that kind of covers slightly heavier board games in general. They did a review of this game, and it just kind of hooked me. I was like, you know what, I've got to try this game. I had a bunch, I still do have quite a bit of in-store credit at Endgame, which is a friendly local game store in Oakland, because I sold a bunch of stuff at their auction. So I decided to drop, I think it was like $50 or $60 at MSRP to buy this game, but if that's what store credit's for. And I've now played it 2 times, I think, 2.5 times, because I played it against myself for half a game at one point just to kind of get a feel for it. And it's a pretty neat experience. So it's a pretty simple engine building game when it comes down to it, because there's pretty much one resource. It's just money. You try to get money, and then you spend that money to make more money or make victory points. The way this game works, well, this new edition, is it added an entire aspect to the game that the old game didn't have. The old game pretty much was just get money, get victory points with it, and then there was a bit of set collection with these aristocrat cards that also made you money and victory points. The new version is all of that, but it also has this market phase with a bit of kind of area majority with 6, I think, different types of resources, and it's just whoever has the most of this icon in their tableau is going to get a certain number of points. Whoever has the second most is going to get another amount of points. So those are, to a certain extent, sort of like resources. They're just more goals that you're hunting for. And I enjoyed playing this game in general. I look forward to playing it again. I played it a 3-player game and a 2-player game all the way through. And the overall experience that I've had was enjoyable. It has not necessarily excited other people around the table as much. Like, it's obviously a good game. It's obviously well designed, and it works really well together. But I wouldn't say it really ignited anything in my mind or in the other players' minds around the table. I think part of that's to do with it seemed like, you have money and victory points, and then a little bit of majority for these various different things. And there's definitely a lot of things to think about, but it also still felt almost a little bit simplistic. I will say that this game played in like an hour and a half, so it was not very long. And I think in the back of my head, I'm comparing it to things I really shouldn't be, like, Through the Ages and Nations, which are, brilliant engine building games where you're drafting cards from a line in order to make a tableau. And there are tons of different resources in those games, but those games also take, 2.5 to 4 or 5 hours, depending on which game you're talking about and how much analysis paralysis you have. Versus St. Petersburg, there didn't seem to be that much analysis paralysis going on. So yeah, in general, a pleasant gaming experience. I look forward to playing it some more, just not one that was particularly exciting. All right, we finally made it to the end. This is the last game of note I'm going to cover, and that is Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft. Now, this is a 2-player only card game with worker placement aspects to it, and it's kind of neat. I mean, from a thematic perspective, if you don't know, there is Sherlock Holmes, which most people know of, and there is Mycroft Holmes, who is Sherlock's brother, and they're kind of like lifelong nemesis. Sherlock is kind of in the streets trying to solve all these crimes, whereas his brother is kind of in the British government trying to solve crimes and stuff over there, but he's just, very by the book, versus Sherlock, who's very not by the book. And all that comes together in this game called Holmes, brother versus brother, essentially. But mechanically, what's going on is a bit of worker placement. But it's a kind of neat take on it, and it's also a 2-player only experience, which you don't see worker placement doing very often. And in this game, you have 3 different workers and a central board with a certain number of action spaces on it. And at the beginning of the game, there's only 5 action spaces. And as you keep taking turns or going through full rounds, you're going to unveil another action space at the beginning of each one of these new rounds. And both players can go on a single action space. So it's not like it is the kind of game where once you go into a spot, nobody else can go there. It's not contentious like that. But if both players go to a certain spot, it will flip over and be exhausted and not be usable for the next round. So the real quirk to this game is that these, 3 of the actions are always out there. They always start the game right on the board. But the rest of them are shuffled up and they come out randomly. So each game is going to play somewhat differently based on the order in which these actions come out. Like, some of the actions are just get a bunch of investigation tokens, and other actions will let you spend investigation tokens to take these clues. So again, going back to the theme, there was an explosion at British Parliament, and this one guy has been blamed for it. And Sherlock is trying to prove he's innocent. Mycroft is trying to prove he's guilty. But realistically, what you're doing is set collection. There are a variety of different types of evidence, and they're just numbered 3 through 9. And there are 3 of these 3 value cards in the deck. There are 9 of these 9 value cards in the deck, and then so on for all the ones in between. And at the end of the game, the player with the most of this one type of evidence in their tableau in front of them will get that amount of points equal to the value. So if you have the most 5s, you get 5 points. But in a neat twist, you lose 1 point for every one of that piece of evidence that your opponent has. So if I have the most 5s, and I have like, well, I guess there's only 5 of them. So if I have 3 and my opponent has 2, then I'll get 5 minus 2 points, or only 3 points for that. And in fact, you get a 3-point bonus if you have all of that set. So you're really trying to do the set collection well. And also you're trying to kind of get in the way of your opponent, maybe drafting these things in to make their victory points less. So in general, I played this once. Coming back to the play of it, I've only played it once, and I enjoyed it. It did feel like there was a lot of copycatting going on in the game that we played, where like I would do a thing and my opponent would do that same thing. And then I would do a thing and my opponent would do that same thing. Because, well, we're both trying to just get a bunch of these tokens and then spend them to get these set collection cards into our tableau. And since we can both go to the same location, well, what's going to stop us from really doing that if that seems to be the best situation on the board? Now, this didn't happen every single turn. It's not like we copied each other throughout the entire game. But I would say that 1 to 2 out of the 3 actions you do every round went on the spot that your opponent just did. And this might be groupthink. I mean, I've only played it once. I'm looking forward to playing it more and see if maybe that just has something to do with the fact the order in which the cards came out. In fact, the starting 5, the 2 that were random, were kind of late game cards. They weren't that great, so that might be kind of why we were double backing on each other for the same specific abilities, because there weren't that many great abilities for the early game. But either way, it's a pleasant little game. It played in like less than half an hour. I'm looking forward to trying it more because, as far as set collection and worker placement games go, this just seems like a nice, cute little a package. It's a really tiny box. It looks like it could travel pretty well. So yeah, that's Sherlock. I'm sorry, Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft. Neat game. Looking forward to trying it more. All right, we finally made it to the last segment of the vlog, and that is the shifting shelf. This is where I talk about the games that have been added into the shelf behind me and the games that were pulled off of the shelf to make room for it. Last month, I somewhat erroneously said that I didn't take any games off the shelf when I actually said that I traded Acrotiri for Myrmes, so obviously Acrotiri left the shelf, but it was a very minor month last month where I only got rid of 1 game and added 2. Well, this month, as you can see, big difference. I acquired 11 games and I've taken 11 games off the shelf. So that's a lot. I'm not going to go into the specifics of really any of them. You could see the list over there and ask me down at the bottom in the comments section if you have any questions about any of these. I've talked about a few of them already in the games of note, and I've played many of them already, which I'm pretty excited to be kind of keeping up with the influx of games. I'm starting to get to the point where I am cutting games that I feel a little weird about cutting. Stockpile would be one of those, as well as, I'm just looking at my list right here, El Gaucho is another one, although you're going to see actually reviews for both of those coming out relatively soon, and once you watch those reviews, you'll have a pretty good idea, I think, of why those did not linger on my shelf quite as long as you thought they might have. So, yeah, I think this pretty much brings us to the end of the vlog. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've covered a whole bunch of games. I'm looking forward to see what August has in store for me. I think there will probably be less humongous changes versus these last 2 months where I've got a new camera, got a new rig, got a studio. August is probably going to be much more about just kind of cranking the wheel a bit, making content, using that studio, and just doing more John Gets Game stuff and playing games, and also probably starting to work a lot at my day job. So I'm hoping to keep up with the content. I should be able to. As I mentioned earlier, I got those 9 videos recorded, and well, now 8, I guess. Well, it's back to 9 if you include this vlog. Anyway, I am rambling now. Let's end this. Yes, I would like to thank everybody who has been supporting this channel through Patreon, including the producer level pledges, some of whom are new for this month. If you too would like to support this channel and everything that I'm doing, I'd greatly appreciate it, and you can do that at patreon.com/JohnGetsGames. Also, if you'd like to see more variety vlogs like this one, I do one every single month. You can see all the games I'm playing, and as well as in-depth board game reviews and full game playthroughs. Please subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching.